Um, this is gonna be so weird. Welcome to the Storm Roundtable. You are used to Rowan and I. You are not quite used to having Bella here. We've talked about Bella on the show before. We've talked about you, of course.
Oh,
You're used to
few times. I feel so
Bella and
special.
I and Rowan have done the Husky Women's Hoop Show for you to Women's Basketball. You've also, I hope you can't see with my fat microphone in the way, Bella is the mastermind behind our Players and Puppies series on Circling Seattle Sports, and just a big friend of Rowan and I. So she'll fit in pretty seamlessly. It seems like since you started doing Storm stuff, Bella, it's like your favorite thing almost. Or just women's hoops in general, I'm sure. So
I do
this will
thoroughly
be
enjoy
great.
it.
And I'm sure whenever we all have time, of course, because it's difficult, we'd love to have you back on here to fill in, because obviously there's going to be a lot to talk about whenever a CBA gets decided. So, whenever that happens, it'll be great. But we do have one thing, at least, like that is for certain to discuss, is that the Storm have signed. Sounds weird saying that about a coach. But the big free agent, they've got Sonia Raman, formerly, she's got a fascinating resume, formerly an assistant with the New York Liberty, her one season around the WNBA, spent some time in the MNBA with the Grizzlies, and a bunch of her former players had a ton of great things to say about her. And then an interesting collegiate resume, primarily at MIT as their head coach, which is a Division III school. That was something that I think Bella pointed out when we were just talking about this, offhand. Um, it is interesting to me because, we'd have folks, I'm sure you guys had it too, where you guys were wondering or people were asking you, oh, what are they going to do at head coach? And I was like, well, I mean, truthfully, because I wasn't super sure about the other options around the league. I was like, you got to shoot for the big fish in Sandy Brondello. I don't think any of us know for certain if she ever got an interview or if she ever wanted to interview with the Storm. I know there was interest from Seattle. That doesn't mean anything. I could be interested in having my hair back. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. Um, but she obviously goes to Toronto, and I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of positive noise with this hire. So we'll just get to it. I know you guys have done your work, so you don't want me to speak anymore. Um, Again, since we both miss Rowan very much, we're gonna go Rowan first, and then Bella. Just your thoughts on the hire, and if you have any opinions on it. If you would have wanted to see someone else, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have shot for the big fish, but like looking into it and looking how I don't know, the basketball world's kind of responded to it. It seems like a good shot. So, I mean, I'm interested to see it play out. So, Rowan to you, and then Bella.
Yeah, I mean, I think it didn't really seem like any of us knew particularly a ton about her. But after seeing her resume, it is really interesting. And like you said, I've seen a lot. Oh, that's my dog's doorbell telling me that she wants to go outside. So I'll make this quick. Anyways, um, I think that she has gotten a lot of really great. I've heard a lot from her former players. We've seen the Memphis Grizzlies players talking about her. And yeah, she seems like a really okay. Let's go to Bella, and then I will turn off her doorbell, and I will be right back.
I will take over. I think that um, there was a lot of general agreement that she was deserving of a head coach role. Um, I certainly was a little surprised given that she only had 4 years in the MNBA and then 1 year with the WNBA,
Yeah.
and then 12 years as the head coach at MIT. But it does seem like even when she was um, with MIT, she was around the NBA. Something I read was that she would often attend Boston Celtics practices and then
Yeah.
return to her team with a bunch of new plays to implement. And she's known for being very, very smart with X's and O's and data analytics and all that stuff. Another story was a player with the Grizzlies, Santi Aldama, she helped him focus on finding shooters for higher percentage shots and successfully helped him increase his assists per game. And he gave her a lot of praise for that. A colleague of mine and Rowan's at the Next, Chelsea Late, was talking to the Toronto Raptors head coach about her, and he was like, she's going to do so great. And she helped me become a better coach. So I think there's, um, it just seems like the way that players are talking with her about her, that she's really good at the relationship development side of things, and creating relationships with her players. And that was, at least from the outside and from reporting, what was possibly lacking with the Storm previously.
Mm.
Um, and so, you know, I trust the people she's worked with more than I trust my knowledge of as myself as someone who doesn't know her. And it seems like
Yeah.
everyone talks really positively about her. She was great in like late game situations and after timeout situations in New York. She, Sandy Brondello, a great coach for her to learn under for a year. You know, my concern would be if like she doesn't have enough experience to make the decisions that a head coach needs to compared to what an assistant coach does. But, being the head coach at MIT for 12 years, even though it is a Division III school, you're still the head coach. And I think I kind of have to assume that at MIT you have some very smart players, and I feel like you have a lot of very smart players in the W too, because that's kind of what you need, right? Um, so I think there's a lot of really interesting things. She's talked about how her law degree from Boston
Mm.
College, has helped her um, sort of look at things different ways, and analyze things in different ways, and approach problem solving in a different way. She has also talked about how sort of her um, work ethic and her particularly her work ethic has, with her parents being immigrants from India, shaped her. This was in a article or an interview with FIBA in 2020 when she became the first coach of Indian descent in the NBA. And she talked about a respect for others and that work ethic, and that really shaping her. And so it just seems like everything is it could go really well. I think it's sort of the same question you have with any new head coach is anytime you hire a new coach, there's a question of, is it going to work out or is it not? And
Yeah.
I think the deck is certainly stacked in her favor. I think it'll also be, they have Storm have 2 first-round draft picks this upcoming draft. Dawn Malonga will be heading into her second season,
Oh yeah.
assuming she is cleared to play after the contract dispute with
Uh,
Fenerbahce. We're not going to get into that because really, truly, no one knows what's going on. Um, but her proclivity for player development could be really great with a lot of the young players. Think about Nika Mule coming back too, Jordan Horston coming back, um, and even thinking about veterans like Neka Agumake is someone that we have heard talk about how she is constantly trying to get better and constantly looking for ways to make her game better. And I think she seems to have enough respect from you know, NBA players and NBA coaches and WNBA players and WNBA coaches to, you know, to maybe get a little grace from veterans, and perhaps not have the same question marks that a new WNBA coach would have around them if they didn't have that experience and all those people talking so well about them. So generally, I like the hire. I'm excited to see how it goes. We will be having an introductory press conference with her on Wednesday. I'm assuming Charles and I will both be there. Um, and so I'm excited to learn more about her, and how I'm really curious, what she thinks is, what allows her to connect with players really well. Because I do think that's going to be an important thing, especially with just such a really dramatic free agency. Like, you don't
yeah.
have the name of a well-known head coach like a Becky Hammon to
Okay. Yeah.
attach to your free agency, you know, when you're pitching yourself to players. And so, I hope that the word of mouth from the WNBA and NBA kind of gets to those free agents and they think positively of her because a lot of people, it sounds like she's been in the running for WNBA head coaching positions even in previous seasons. They signed her to a multi-year contract that was specified, I believe, was that specified in the reporting or was it specified in the Storm press release?
I think it was for sure in the reporting. I
It
can
was
double
definitely in
check
the
the
reporting.
release.
I'm not. Charles will confirm if it's official or not. But that's a lot of faith to put in a first year head coach. Maybe that's what
Yeah,
they needed to do to offer her a certain amount of security in taking the job. It's certainly far away from home for her. She grew up in Massachusetts, played for a while in Massachusetts, spent a lot of time sort of in that East Coast area. It was not
I don't see
specified in the
anything
press
about
release.
multi-year in the press
Yeah,
release,
they
but
wouldn't, honestly. But it was in
yeah,
the reporting, and generally, the guy who reported it is pretty trustworthy. So I'm going to say yes, that was correct. Um, and it certainly seems like Talisa Ray, the general manager, and the organization have a certain amount of faith in her, and that this will work, even if it takes a year or two. Um, so I'm excited about it. And now Rowan's back, so she can add to what I said, although she might have not heard what I said.
I can. If you would like me to fill in a little bit, Rowan, I can do that, and you can pick up there.
Sure, let's go with that. Remind me next time to unplug my dog's doorbell.
I
No, but
did
Just
then
good,
what is your dog going to do when they have to go to the
so
bathroom?
true.
exactly,
So
man. We
true.
can wait. We
Yeah,
can
we're all
wait.
dog people here. Clearly, we're the players and puppies.
Literally right
Yeah,
now, literally
literally.
these puppies on my screen.
Oh my god, those are such cute puppies. I miss Tank.
Rip.
Okay.
Miss my
Yeah,
guy
go
Tank.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
And then
it's
I'll get
well,
back.
you Bella was lastly touching on about the long, not long term, but the multi-year part of the reporting from Shams, who does NBA stuff, apparently does WNBA stuff now, occasionally. When he broke the news that it was a multi-year deal, and Bella was talking about they obviously have faith. Talisa ownership must obviously say, "Hey, we are happy with this hire. This isn't a 1 year. We want to see what you can handle." They believe in the person, they believe in the resume, but I do remember in the exclusive interview that apparently the Times and the ESPN got with Talisa after we did exit reviews, because normally we get the GM as well. We did not this year. Don't know what that was about. Um, that Talisa basically said we want to find someone that can help establish a new identity, right? And that was something that I know NECA talked about throughout the year. Last year, there were times that she said we're looking for that, and when that's coming halfway through the season, that's not great, you know. So it was just about Bella largely, kind of talked about um the how folks around the MNBA had said such great things about her and believe, in her. We've both kind of referenced, former players with the Grizzlies, what they've said about her. I know, I follow Noah Dalzell, who does some WNBA stuff around the Boston area, and she's talked to Xavier Tillman, who's with the Celtics now, but played with um, the Grizzlies, and she talked about how she's always doing extra work and always, whenever players want to do extra film, encouraging extra film, right? The preparation side was so big, and that'll always sound good, right? Because you have those games where players say we weren't ready. People hate that, right? So I don't. Obviously, we haven't played the season yet. Lord knows if we'll have one. But it just seems like there are
I
a lot of
actually, interrupting you for a moment, I just saw while I was taking my dog out on my phone that they have agreed to a 30-day extension.
okay, that's
So,
nice.
that's your update.
But yeah, it was just I'm optimistic about the hire, because you learn more at first when it's an assistant. I don't pay attention to too many assistants here and there. It's great to make history, of course, but the resume is fascinating. And when you've got this many players at the highest level of basketball on the men's and women's side praising you, it can't be a bad thing. So that's just where I was at with what Bella said and my own thoughts is just because I was like, oh shoot, this happened. And I had to like educate myself before I wrote about her. It was as I went on, I was like, wow, okay. Like this isn't just some person that you pulled out of nowhere. They obviously they wanted to do their homework. I know Talisa mentioned that, and this is where they came to, and I'm optimistic. So I don't know about you, but obviously I know you've got stuff prepared.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you said, I didn't really know much about her either. I think that it's interesting to me that her wife has connections to Snohomish and used to play. She grew up in Snohomish and she was a WNBA player. I have that in my notes, which I think is interesting. So there is some connection to Seattle, which isn't super important. The WNBA's season is pretty short, but it's nice to know that maybe someone is in it more for the long haul if they have some familiarity with the area. Yeah, I mean, she sounds like a just really overall just very intelligent person. She, has her law degree, but then, I don't know how many people have their do like go to law school and then decide to coach instead after all that work. So, yeah, I'm really interested to see how that goes. I know that, we were actually talking, we were all texting about the LA Sparks specifically and just their coaching staff. Long story of why we were even talking about that. But I think one of the points that we made was it was interesting to see with the LA Sparks specifically, how they hired Lynn Roberts, who had only had previous college coaching experience, which we are seeing a lot. You have Jose Fernandez who only has, college coaching experience. And then later on in the season with the LA Sparks, they hired Latricia Trammell to come in and essentially be what it felt like to me as an advisor of how to coach in the WNBA. And so I think that I think it's a good move for the Storm to hire someone who has not only WNBA experience, but also WNBA coaching experience under one of the most successful teams in the league, and under one of the most successful coaches in the league as well, in Sandy Brondello. So yeah, I think it's a really great choice. I'm excited to, kind of learn more about her, and know more about her. I know some people had mentioned, maybe a Breon January, possible hire. And I know that the three of us were, just thinking that maybe experience wise, she wasn't quite ready for that. Not to, no shade, but, we saw kind of how it worked out when the Storm just went with a player turning coach, just based on familiarity. And, obviously Noelle Quinn did good enough job, but clearly it wasn't enough. And so I think maybe a Breon January might have been just a little bit too similar to that situation. So yeah, I'm really happy with what I've heard about Sonia. Like you said, it sounds like her former players are speak very highly of her. I think it's really interesting that at least from what I've seen. Oh, I also was going to say I am interested to see who's going to be on her staff, like taking that just a step further because I'm assuming it's a complete clean slate from Noelle Quinn's coaching staff. We know that they all were, very in with Noelle Quinn. It wasn't the kind of thing that they were there before and that she came in. I think she really built that. So I think with her being gone, I think we're not going to see Pokey Chapman or Ebony Hoffman. So interested to see who's going to be on her staff. Maybe I'm not really sure what Liberty assistants are available. Maybe she might bring some people over from there. Not really sure, but yeah, curious about that. And yeah, overall, think that her resume speaks for itself.
That was going to be my big. It's a great thing that you bring up with the assistants because that's immediately what I'm like. Okay, what's next? I want to get going, which is unfortunate because thank you for bringing that in, by the way, because I haven't gotten anything on that. No, nobody's push notificationed me about the extension. I feel like that's important news. Um, but yeah, I am interested to see how that staff fills out because obviously here in Seattle, oh well, never mind. Alexa Philippou just put something out. There you go. I think that's how you say her name. I don't want to be rude. But yeah, you saw with in Seattle, particularly, having such a black women-led staff that was big for Skylar and NECA and other players who came through here talked about that as well. Pokey obviously, was the associate GM, obviously now gone, so that title does not remain. Oh God, there was Mitch Thompson. I kind of forgot he was there. Um, you know, we just got to know Ebony and Pokey so well, right? So yeah, I am really fascinated. And I'm normally not a big, oh, I need to know the assistants, but this is such a fascinating time to see how that will ultimately be determined. I know we're kind of running lower on time here. We'll have to do, and when we get, I'm sure more information after the press conference, and I think maybe we'll try to do something there because I'm sure we'll get more there, a little bit more information, maybe how Sonya will try to attack certain things right in this offseason. But I guess my big question, like thinking about everything, is how do you think this affects Seattle's plans? Or I guess, yeah, if you're in the Talisa seat, what are you doing here? Are you running it back? With that group of Skylar, NECA, obviously you've got Dom, Jordan, Lexi Brown is on the roster, but I don't think a lot of us expect for her to return after the comments made at the end of the season. Maybe a new staff changes that, but I don't know. Um, you know, I am interested, and I don't know how much it matters, but the team has posted a lot about Gabby Williams still being here, using the facility. It could very well just be a player, hey, the Storm are like, hey, you were under contract with us. You've been great. You've come back. Use the facility as much as you like, right? But she was showing Adam Sandler around Climate Pledge Arena. Like,
She's
I don't
also, I
know.
think, kind of rehabbing a little bit. She's taking some time off to deal with some injuries,
Yes.
which she had
So, but
talked about
also
at her exit interview.
you see what I mean, though? Just like her being around, it obviously shows like she doesn't want to get the hell out of here immediately. So I know we've got limited time. So do with that what you can. Bella, and then Rowan to end us off. Just what you think the plan would be roster wise. Do we see a lot of these players return? I don't imagine they'll bring the entire group back, of course. But it'll be interesting to see who gets more looks. Mackenzie Holmes is balling down in Australia, not under. Um, I don't. I'm very interested to see how things work. Obviously, you've got at minimum Dom and Jordan. So for you, Bella, in our limited time, just your thoughts on what the plan is at least, because that could change, right? Depending on if Skylar and Neko want to be back, and then Rowan to close us out.
Yeah, I think as long as you can convince NECA to come back, you convince NECA to come back, and you find a way to compete for a championship. I think two first round draft picks, one from Vegas, one from LA. Obviously, the LA one going to be higher than the Vegas one, um, but ideally with that LA pick, I don't want to see them trade that away. I don't want to see them trade away a bunch of high draft picks. Um, because I think they do need to balance a little bit more their veterans like NECA with younger players. I still think like absolutely you try and bring Ezzy and Gabby back if you can. They are still very young, and Ezzy in particular, I don't think is at her ceiling, especially scoring wise, and she's just so good defensively. If Erica Wheeler is willing to come back and play a bench role again, I am more than happy to see her back because boy was she just a joy to be around.
You said
Um,
Seattle has dibs.
she did say Seattle has dibs before anyone knew that Noe was being fired. Um, so I think, I just want them to, I think they should balance the running it back with investing into the youth a little bit more. I'm not sure how much, Holmes's performances in Australia will translate. It's a very different league in terms of just the competitiveness, but it is great to see her doing well over there. Nika doing well in Europe as well. Um, and then also we have to keep in mind there will be the expansion draft. We're unlikely to have the same situation as last year where somehow we lost no players. Um, so, I just don't know what those rules are or anything. But I want to see a balance of like, please, dear Lord, bring back NECA because she is so good. she is so 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 good, and she seems really happy in Seattle. And then from there, just balance what you're investing in some youth at the same time, because I think also what you want, kind of when they had Sue is like Brianna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd were learning from Sue. They were getting to play with Sue, and I think when you think about Ezzy and Dom playing with NECA, that is so valuable. Even if don't win a WNBA championship for NECA, which I would like to see, she can do so much for the future of the franchise if you invest in young players around her, and I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know exactly what the situation is. I do think it's interesting in basically every article I've seen that that Sonia is very interested in Dom specifically. Like every quote seems to be kind of about Dom and her development. That obviously could just be because there really aren't that many people to talk about that are definitely going to be locked in. But I do think that is it's just interesting to hear that she's really excited about Dom, and I think that that's exciting just for the Storm in general to know that there's someone that really wants to invest in her development, because I think that that was one of the intentions of bringing her in. And again, we've talked about she had a great rookie season, but nowhere near her ceiling. And so that is really exciting to be like, she's 19 years old. She has all this time, and now she has this coach. Not saying that Noelle Quinn did not want to invest in her, but she has this coach that is like, I am coming to Seattle. I want to invest in you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting just talking about like roster construction. Another quote from an ESPN article says, having started her time in Memphis with a focus on the defensive end before shifting to offense, Raman wants the Storm's identity to start with multiple efforts on defense and carry over to up-tempo offense with an emphasis on floor spacing and half-court execution. So, essentially that she wants to do everything, but I think it's interesting. We talked so many times about how it felt like last season there was not an identity named for what was kind of going on. We know that Noelle Quinn was basically all about defense, and that's mentioned again in here. But I think it's interesting, like the floor spacing and the half court execution. I think are up tempo offense are all things that we think about Gabby Williams. That's an up tempo offense that you have. So I think that. Yeah, having someone, bringing Gabby back, I think will be huge, for like, you had four all-stars, in different capacity. You have Ezzy that was not an all-star this year, but was an all-star in the past. So, yeah, I mean, I think that when you have a new coach, a lot of people are tempted to just do a complete rebuild, and I wouldn't agree with that, but I do agree with you, Bella, that I don't think that those first round picks should be traded away. I think that you need to be able to have, like we were talking about in our UW show just a few minutes ago, you have to have that balance between having veteran players that can teach the younger players, but also having those younger players to be able to build for your future. And so, yeah, I think, I see them keeping Dom clearly. I think Jordan Horston's coming back. That's going to be really big for them. Nika Mule, again, we'll see what happens with the expansion draft. But, just thinking about Noelle Quinn and thinking about how I feel like she really emphasized that veteran presence a lot. I'm interested to
Yeah.
see how much Sonia wants to do that, or how much she wants to kind of start fresh. And from how much she's talking about Dom, it really feels like there is kind of an emphasis on those younger players. But I agree with you, Bella, that you can't pass up Aneka Gumake. You can't
No.
pass up Gabby Williams and Ezzy Magbagor, who are still so young but so experienced at the same time. So I think that specifically those three, in NECA, Gabby, and Ezzy, key to bringing back. And then from there, it's not going to be the prettiest season, I'm assuming, but that's kind of what happens. And I think that I would like to see her kind of setting the groundwork with some of those draft picks, and just, yeah, seeing what happens.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Again, we'll do something after we'll figure out once they have the presser, and hopefully we know more. I know it's very optimistic to think they'd get a CBA done in that time. Ugh. But, that'd be cool. Yeah, no, I largely agree. I just imagine with the way Skylar has talked about, in her introduction presser, she said, I want this to be my last stop. I would be, and if NECA stays, I'd be shocked if Skylar doesn't stay. And you talked about the All Stars. It just seems like you had a great group, but maybe they didn't get used the right way. And you mentioned Jordan Horston. Jordan Horston, I do think you can compete again, and especially with a hodgepodge of how teams will look differently. I don't know. You could come out on top of that. I don't know. We'll see. So, till we see you after that press conference, take care of yourselves. Be well, whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, were you going to watch the Seattle Storm away games this year?
Away games. Well, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, so I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See you all here.